All right, what's going on, guys? What is going on? So listen, Brian will be here in a couple of minutes, so I figured I'd hop on early, maybe field any early questions you guys have till Brian gets here. And yeah, we got a lot to go over, guys. Going to be a great stream. I'm very excited about this stream. Excited that Brian has been gracious enough to give us a little bit of his time here to kind of go through the AMA and break down the key takeaways that he took from it. If you don't know about the AMA, guys, we live streamed it a couple of days ago. Some people were struggling with some of the stuff Hara had to say. They couldn't really understand, so that's why we're doing this. And Brian was one of the ambassadors that was actually on the AMA asking questions to Hara. So yeah, anyway, I'll get into some of your guys' questions while we wait for Brian to get here. We'll get into the chat. Big Kev, what's up, buddy? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Rob Father, hey, crypto fam. Jasmy to the moon. Premium Card TV, what's up, man? Good to see you. Jasmy, $10. Oh, wouldn't that be nice, eh? Wouldn't that be nice? William, what's up, buddy? Good old William here for every stream. I absolutely love it, man. Make sure you guys smash the like and subscribe. Helps the channel grow immensely, guys. Dumb Money, what's up, buddy? Good to see you, man. Chris, why do you think the rise in price and and will it last? Yeah, it will last, in my opinion. Well, I mean, listen, look at Jasmy right now. It's having itself a fantastic time. We've been looking at the charts, guys. We have the inverse head and shoulders going on here. You know, we're trying to break out of this bullish pennant that we've been in for how long now? Like 3 months, right? Only a matter of time before we break out of that, in my opinion. And the sky's the limit for sure. But yeah, I mean, listen, we'll just take it right now, day by day, right? We'll take the pump. Now, listen, I mean, Bitcoin could drop this week. We could see Bitcoin fall back down to around 60K, but and obviously Jasmy and everything else would have a little bit of a pullback, but it's going to be a volatile week, guys. There's a lot going on. We got Gary Gensler and all 5 commissioners of the SEC testifying in front of Congress tomorrow morning, which will be live streaming as well. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a volatile week. There's a lot of people are giving speeches from the Fed and stuff like that about the economic situation as well. So there's a lot to get into this week, guys. It could be a very volatile week. So strap on and strap in. All right, so Brian just messaged me, said he'll be along any moment, so we'll wait for that, and we'll continue to field some questions in the meanwhile. Tara, yo, Rob and Jasmy family, what are the symptoms of a melting face? That's my first bull run. Nice. Jack, you ready to make money? Absolutely. Yamaha, what's going on, man? Listening at work, that's what I like to see, man. What's up, buddy? Doug, how you doing, buddy? Rob, awesome to have you and Brian. Thank you so much, man. Haas, what's up, man? I'm doing good. Just had some steak, so. Emmanuel, what's up, buddy? Long time no see, man. Where you been? What else do we got here? Big Kev, how you feeling, by the way? You had a headache? Yeah, I still have a pretty bad headache, but I think it was I don't know if it was a caffeine headache or something or what's going on, but head's still pounding a little bit, but I'm okay. We're here. Dwayne, what's up, buddy? Holmes in the house. Good to see you, buddy. Nothing but the North Talk. What's up, man? Good evening to you too, man. We did it again. Not Brittany, but Jasmy Colbert. Nice. All right, so we got Brian in the house. Brian, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, man? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
I got you.
Yeah, for some reason it's not letting my camera access, but whatever. I'm not going to bother figuring it out right now.
Yeah, no big deal, right? Man, listen, I just wanted to thank you first of all for taking some time out for me and for the community, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on again, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, it's always good to have you on, brother. A lot of people had a hard time understanding a lot of the replies that Hara gave, so that's why I felt it was kind of important to do this kind of thing, right?
Yeah, sometimes the answers are clear. It helps if you're extremely familiar with every single thing going on. um, and that's kind of the only way I can sometimes decipher it. Hara's English has gotten extremely good compared to the first time we spoke, because he started learning English when he was uh, really when he uh, became CFO of JASMY and really started the outreach and IR back in 2021. So, between English and Japanese, they couldn't be more opposite. I think I looked it up one time, and the only language more difficult to translate between English and another, aside from Japanese, is Navajo. So that's that's basically how difficult it is. And from everything I've been doing, it is pretty hard. So I did go through and re-listen to it several times. I have not gone back through detailed wise of the portion after the speakers when they opened up the mics. I know Mai asked some questions as well as some others. So I'm trying to get together a full transcript like I did for the Roadmap Telegram AMA. But that one took me about 8 hours to transcribe over several days. So I may just compile notes and give a bullet point list like I've been doing so far, man. But what have you seen, or what were questions you had just right off the bat?
Well, I mean, I was live streaming it, and I was listening, but I kept fading in and out because I had my little guy with me and stuff. But I mean, they talked about a layer one for starters. There's a couple topics I kind of wanted to get into with it to make sure I had a good understanding. But um, yeah, like I don't know, maybe if you want to start there, like
Yeah.
what was the layer one talk about in detail that you understand anyway?
Yeah, so funny enough, and I'm not really going to post about this. I don't mind talking about it, but it just it brings on people who aren't necessarily interested in a project to start poking into people who may want to remain private, such as developers and other things. But this one gentleman back in May had reached out to me to see if there were any developmental opportunities within JASMY. He was a blockchain dev. I went through his portfolio and his previous works and everything. And from a idiot's perspective, mine, it looked pretty decent from all the research I've done into Web3 and blockchain over the past 3 years. So I forwarded it on to Hara. So I just created a separate chat with him and Hara-san, and introduced him and showed him the portfolio and everything. And then I left the chat. Hara let me know in mid-June that the gentleman's contract had ended. They set up a call with Bernie or Burned. He did say on the call he prefers to be called Bernie, so I'll try to remember that. And he actually going through the whole plan for Junction's ecosystem, the layer 2 and everything else, suggested that creating a layer 1 would be a better option for them to be able to kind of control the direction of their project, as well as open it up for more opportunities down the road. So in a way, it kind of made it more dynamic. And they ended up hiring him back on because I follow him. I'm not going to divulge who he is because I haven't gotten permission. I don't know if he wants to. You know how it is in crypto. When somebody is known to work for a project, people are on top of them, and not everybody needs that. And a lot of people deserve their privacy with, So either way, he was hired back on as the lead blockchain dev. What this layer 1 is described by Burned. And actually, let me start with the layer 2. So the layer 2 is currently, they've done their minimal viable product and presented it at these events they've done recently. So that's what they were talking about, with people having seen their more detail into that as in regards to the presentations. The actual mainnet for the layer 2 will be done, he said a month in about a month, so mid to late October, I presume at the latest. It seems like it's an open window. Again, I don't hold them to exact dates when they're developing brand new technology in emerging markets. So, around a month, let's just say, the layer 2 mainnet should be ready. Bernie also specified that this would allow people to go ahead and start allocating GPU resources to the mainnet. So whether you are a company that has its own GPU server rooms, or whether you're just at home and you have a PC with a viable graphics card, like Jesse has his Apple PC with an M2 chip in it, which is one of the ones that are currently listed on the website. So you'll be able to dedicate those GPU resources to the layer 2 GPU pool, and I believe start earning immediately. Again, this is one of those things where you may see phases roll out in different orders than originally intended. They just have to play it as it goes. Now, with the layer 1,
sorry, just to ask you, just to unpack that just a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
So are we talking about, in terms of earning, are we talking about the PDL being live?
So the way it's described is that JASMY and Junction are two separate projects. The purpose of it is so that it's kind of like when a subsidiary spins off from the parent company so that it can move faster and do its own thing. Similar here. So it's incubated by JASMY Inc., but it's being developed through JASMY Labs, and JASMY Lab is what Hara is also the CEO of and founder of, along with Akira. So the PDLs are also not needed for Junction. Junction is not necessarily needed for the PDLs, and I'll get into more details on that in a bit. But there is plans on integrating the PDLs into Junction, because when you're discussing language learning models and machine learning, et cetera, data is the oil for that. So regardless if it's data that's being self-generated by AI agents going through iterative processes to refine their own type of data, or whether it's data from the real world through IoT devices, through whatever it may be. One specific example Hara gave was, let me pull it up in my notes here, was when he was talking about how who they're kind of collaborating with a little bit through the minimal viable product portion of the L2 is, let's see, one of their dApps that they're participating with, or participating in the ecosystem for Junction. The person has a YouTube channel of 6 million subscribers. This might resonate with you a bit as well here, Rob, as well as Max, I'm sure. But currently, you don't really know anything about your subscribers, right? Unless they tell you. So you just know you have such and such subscribers. So in this case, 6 million. Integrating the PDL into the Junction ecosystem can allow people to also, who are part of the Junction ecosystem, utilizing their resources, it can allow them to also gain insights into PDL users. So you may start to find that people are sharing information for rewards from the JASMY ecosystem onto the PDL that is data that you could potentially either pay for or trade points that you generated, convert into JASMY to pay for, etc. So that you can gain valuable insight on your subscribers. So maybe it helps you understand better about their behaviors, about what they like, dislike, when, all the kind of analytics that you have in the background on YouTube that kind of show you, where users have dropped off, or when people are paying attention more, when people, all those little things are just the start, because then you're also gaining more data than that. When you have IoT devices around, you have cameras, you have sensors, etc. When it combines all of those things, maybe it's also monitoring, and I'm saying maybe, this is speculation at this point, but maybe it's also monitoring biometrics. So it's monitoring heart rate. It's watching through the camera lens on your TV or your phone or your PC while you're watching it. And just like the Data Happiness Project or the Kuzit's Emmy Wash, where it's analyzing your emotions as well, it can gain even more valuable insight through little subtleties like that, making data highly valuable and highly refined to someone such as yourself as a content creator. I know I rambled on with that bit just a little, but that the PDLs themselves, again, are not needed for the Junction ecosystem. So they are meant to operate separately, but they will operate in a symbiotic relationship.
Right. And just on a side note before we continue that, because that's a question I just get bombarded with, as I'm sure you imagine. You probably do too, right? Is
Yeah,
when, is there any idea when it's gonna be active for people to be able to utilize the PDL? I'm an assumption right now that, so back in March when they said that Junction was working on developing a platform with Panasonic, right? And that they had planned on having that launched, if I remember correctly, in roughly 6 months. Obviously, I don't hold their feet to the fire on timing either, because things never take, they always take longer. But I would assume that if that's the case, then the PDL would need to be used for that, right? That platform they're utilizing to connect manufactured IoT devices.
Yeah, and he did kind of touch on that. The way I was writing my notes is, there were questions all over the place, and some answers are partially answered throughout. So I've been trying to combine things to create a more cohesive way of reviewing the AMA, so to speak. But he did mention that. Let me see if I can find that specifically. Let's see.
I'm taking you all over your notes.
Yeah, because that part I said about combining them to make it more cohesive, I haven't gotten there yet. I just noticed that, as I was writing all these notes, I was like, oh, well, that should go with this up here. You know what I mean? So yeah, the PDLs themselves will be launched first from Japan. Same thing with the Super Wallet, because it is a Japanese first project. So when you see little things that they're working with that seem like nothing burgers to everyone, such as on a global scale, what does the Seigen Tosu app mean to any of us? Absolutely nothing. It only is relevant to people who are Seigen Tosu fans, right? Same thing with the Data Happiness projects that they did in the past, which is basically AI recognition of user emotion. There's also the Nippon Travel Agency that they're developing their AI engine with. All of these things start out as like proof of concepts, just to kind of show the general idea of how things will work before it's expanded on in the broader market. So what starts off as something simple as an app with dynamic NFTs and AI agents and, a Super Wallet and your PDL all combined for Seigen Tosu fan app, is then proven through commercialization and then expanded upon, because now you have proof to give to a company with data backing it up on how it's being used, reactions, how it can generate a circular economy through various regions. There's a lot of applications, but it will be starting Japan first. So I would not expect that anyone outside of the Japanese JASMY community will have first access to it. But the PDL's already almost ready for launch on the Japanese version of the App Store. So with that being said, I would expect that it's going to roll out with Panasonic. Again, the phases for Panasonic and exactly when that happens and what it looks like from a consumer perspective is not as clear to me at this point, because the roadmap is limited in detail. Even when he explained it, they're not giving too many details. They like to kind of give the idea and then really show us what they mean, which sometimes I can understand is for the better, because more information leads to more questions, and they're going to get questions anyway.
Well, they also come from a stock world coming from Sony, right? Where they do generally, businesses like that do generally keep their cards close to their chest, right?
Yeah, I mean, outside of honestly, AAA Gaming or Elon Musk, there's very few companies that are giving real behind the scenes looks or forward guidance as to what to expect. Sometimes you just get a surprise launch. There's development and you don't realize that what's about, there's not really a roadmap per se, I guess you would say, that it's pretty much privy to insiders, whether it's public or a private company for the most part. So especially for JASMY, even Sony, outside of like PlayStation giving sneak peeks on game developments or what they just kind of alluded to with their PS5 Pro coming up, there's really not much. You just kind of like, hey, we're going to be releasing this, then it's silent. And then they may do a marketing campaign in the run up to it, like a few weeks or a month before, and then released. But what we're getting is like in crypto in general is generally, a yearly roadmap. And then they go through it. Things will need to get adjusted. Roadmaps are not set in stone. So we can never expect them to stick to everything and not make adjustments as needed. But yeah, it is something that is even more held close to the chest in Japan for sure.
And now I have a speculative question for you. This is something that I'm kind of playing with. It's from the AMA. Now I could have swore, now tell me if you heard the same thing, when Hara was asked about Sonium, whether JASMY or Jangshin was in talks or hoping to work with them, and Hara started to say something and then he said something to the effect of, I just got off the phone, and then he said, I can't talk about that. So
yes, I re-listened to that part probably 6 times to make sure I got the sentiment. Deciphering Hara over the years, I've kind of picked up on how he speaks in English, because Japanese is a very context-based language. So sometimes the context is assumed based on the text, or the words give more context versus English. We kind of we explain context a lot of times. So anyway, before I get to that Sonium, let me just wrap up the L1, because he only touched on it. But to answer your question on what the layer 1 will be, so their plan is to finish up the layer 1 or layer 2 rather. Then that mainnet will be launched here within a month or so. Then they're going to do the layer 1. Then the data annotation layer will be delivered after that. So the first step is to earn points from connecting GPUs to their system. Later, you can convert those points to tokens, use them any way you see fit. Of course, JASMY coin will be used within the tokenomics of that. Now, the layer 1 is finishing the concept right now, and the consensus algorithm that they're planning on using is proof of resource and proof of task. And they're looking at doing proof of staked authority, so POSA, kind of what Binance Smart Chain is known for, right? So the layer 1 is basically going to be like a reputation staking, essentially. So it combines proof of stake and proof of authority in those. So this will allow them to update and expand as they see fit with their own dApps and own native token. Now, I know every time a token's mentioned, everybody freaks out, but the way that Hara described this token, and again, this can change because the layer 1 is in a proof of concept, so they could announce more use cases for it or whatever. The only way I see it is that the more viable options you have for JASMY coin to be used in a larger market, the more valuable it's worth. So I don't care about having more stable coins, more tokens. I don't think that detracts. I think what they're doing is actually trying to create the best possible token economy in general that makes sense for their business. But this layer 1, the way Hara described it, is since they're considering proof of staked authority, will be more of a node staking type of dedicated token, so to speak. That's really all we have on the layer 1 right now. I asked if he could expand on it, and he that's the information he said he could talk about at this moment. He also did mention stay tuned for JASMY coin staking on Junction ecosystem as well, which we know that that will be a thing to unlock the data trading marketplace in the JASMY platform, aside from Junction. So this is just additive to JASMY's initial use case. So adding is good. Doesn't matter how much it is. Before we move on to Sony, did you have anything you wanted to add or ask about that?
Well, I was just going to make two comments. One, it sounds like they're really going to try to focus on a solid TVL, which, I mean, worked wonders for Cardano's ecosystem last bull run, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm interested to see, this has always been one of my, one of the things that's bothered me is just, you know, in traditional markets, it's very clearly defined what circulating supply means, what a float means, and that, you know, circulation is initially generated from IPO. So in traditional public markets, they use these same definitions in crypto, and it is not one for one. For instance, I can take a cryptocurrency, I can give it a 50 trillion token max supply, right? I can initially release, say, a third of that, and then I have a market cap based on what's released. We don't know who's holding it. Those tokens could just be sitting on an exchange. Same thing when they release all 50 trillion of them, their market cap goes up because it's now a part of circulating supply based on the actual what the token is trading for. Now, obviously, dilution will bring the supply down, but not all the coins being released always hit the exchange. They may just be sitting into cold wallets, but they're counted as circulating supply. So I've always had just an issue with the definitions around all that in general, and I'm not quite sure how things are going to evolve from a regulatory standpoint anywhere in regards to how they redefine that for proper auditing in that regard, because auditing is still one of the underdeveloped regulatory landscapes within Web3 and cryptocurrency on a global basis, which Japan's trying to tackle. But it was one of Hara's initial complaints about trying to break in is, well, how do corporate auditors even know how to audit blockchain? They don't. So TVL, I'd be interested to see what is counted out of what JASMY does for TVL, because will it count as a total value locked if I stake JASMY to unlock my wallet, but I can unstake it at any time? You know what I mean? So I'm kind of weary as to, and that's what Dip was also very weary to count the lockups as removal from circulating supply when he did his initial calculation of the KPIs to get 1787, because we just really don't know how that's going to evolve. But yes, either way, there will be a deflationary aspect. How it's defined and what that means for the total market cap is to be determined, and honestly out of JASMY's control or any crypto's control.
Yeah, I agree. Unless there's some sort of like on Binance or something, when you have a set time that you stake, like a year or whatever, then I get what
Correct.
you're saying.
Yeah.
You just pull it out whenever you want, like.
Yeah, exactly. If there's no term on the staking, then it's kind of like, okay, well, I can take it out anytime. How's that any different than circulating supply? You know?
Yeah, unless, yeah. I guess the only thing is, you know, that would make people assume is just if the rewards are too good, then obviously, you know, like I think we follow a project called XCN here too, and they have like a 37% APR right now just to keep your tokens staked and locked up, right? So if it was something like that, then, but I mean, even that's not sustainable over a long period of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, honestly, the only thing that's going to create sustainability is adoption of Web 2 companies moving into Web 3, blue chips, et cetera. But that's why JASMY itself, its platform, is a slower moving behemoth, is because it's waiting for that regulatory guidance, tax reforms, for real clarification and education to auditors globally, because auditors in one area may have different laws and regulations than another. And so it starts with just the basic education. But that does take time. And that's what you're seeing out of Japan, is they're ahead of all the other G7 countries, but in terms of regulation and guidance and tax reform, but they are still working it out.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I try to stress on the channel, is that, you know, people get impatient, and I say, you know, what would be really worse is, you know, what would be worse, JASMY taking, or Jangshin and JASMY taking longer to get their products out to market and get them done properly, or them rushing to launch things and having all kinds of bugs and negativity. That's where the FUD really starts to pour into a project, right?
Yeah, kind of like when your project is called the Ethereum killer and gets into the top 20, and then all of a sudden it has massive outages over and over again. I'm not going to name any names, but we all know who I'm talking about. And not complaining about them, you know. It's just, you know, that there are public open chains that you know, go straight in and they're developing on the fly and everything, and then there's ones that are making their ecosystems for Web 2 companies to feel comfortable about moving into Web 3. And that type of uncertainty, when you have stakeholders and shareholders breathing down your neck, is not an option.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100%. What was the next area you had over on your notes? I don't want to bring.
Let's get back to Sonium. After that, so you're inquiring about that. So what? Going back and listening to Hara several times, I did hear the same thing you had heard, which is why I wanted to make sure I understood it properly. But Hara said he has been inquiring into Sonium, but he cannot say a lot due to the relationships he has. The way I take this is, you know, Sonium is participating with Sony Bank. Sony Bank has also entered into the blockchain and NFT realm as well. Interestingly enough, we do work with Sony Financial, the division, which Sony Bank is a part of. The Sony Financial Group, that division of Sony, is splitting off from Sony, I believe October of 2025. I think that Sony's still going to have a I forget what percentage share they're going to hold, but it's not going to be a wholly owned division anymore. And I think that also just gives them the ability to be able to operate, you know, at their own accord easier than it does being under direct control of the group. But interestingly, you know, the entire Sony Financial Group owes its foundation to Kunitake Ando, because that group started with Sony Prudential Life back in the late 70s when Morita, the founder of Sony, wanted to found a bank and also wanted to kind of get into that whole side of the untapped market from Sony's perspective. And they started with life insurance because opening a bank was not feasible at that time for a company like them. So they met with Sony Prudential in the US, and Ando, who knew nothing about life insurance. I mean, his BAs, he has two of them. The first he got in America from liberal arts college in sociology, and then he has his BA, of course, in economics. So this was foreign to him. But he started Sony Life, which eventually, when he became COO and president of Sony in 2000, and that's when Sony Bank was also founded, and then eventually the Sony Financial Group as a whole, as well as their other subsidiaries. And so the founders of Sony Bank are the current dual management of Sony right now, Yoshida and I forget the COO, the president and COO's name. But those two guys who are running Sony right now were the ones who founded Sony Bank under Kunitake Ando. And Kunitake Ando, of course, was the chairman of Sony Financial Group after retiring or stepping down as president from Sony in 2005. And he was the honorary chairman all the way into I think around 2015, 2016, sometime around right before when they started JASMY. So the ties with that entire financial group are huge. And so when Har was referring to because of the relationships we have, I believe that he's going through and talking through the channels that are working with Sonium. And that's what he meant by that. So obviously there would be an NDA there, but that doesn't mean that there's a direct NDA partnership with JASMY or Junction and Sonium at this moment. How he clarified that is that they are developing, Junction's developing on OP Stack for their layer 2 release for their open source chain. Sonium is as well. He said he can't see the full vision of Sonium and isn't sure why they did an L2 on OP Stack or why they went the L2 route with their current product or everything. But he said they would like to work with them in the future for development of like applications, DEXs, other dApps and DeFi, et cetera. So there's certainly, as Icy Amphibian has pointed out, there's a very easy way for them to both work together in a mutually beneficial way if there are business opportunities that make sense for both of their businesses. That's the same thing he actually said about Ripple when somebody asked him about Ripple. He said, we aren't close with Ripple, but we will explore cooperation opportunities if it serves both businesses. So that's where that is. So there's definitely potential for that. Some things I don't think we're going to see as a viable potential in the near future, because their focus right now, of course, is their current roadmap, which is the Panasonic platform launch, the National Carbon Credit Exchange, their AI engines, as well as, of course, Junction's GPU pools and ecosystem. So as we start moving through those, and one good thing he did talk about with Junction and incorporating larger Web 2 businesses in, he mentioned that, in Japan, and he goes, this might be more Japanese specific than some other places, but companies are extremely cooperative. So oftentimes when there's something that's trending or a new opportunity presents itself, everybody hops on and starts developing. In this case, we're referring to language learning models. So he's basically hinting that, there's everybody in Japan who's a big name is working on their own LLMs. Those LLMs require GPU resources, which are becoming more and more scarce. Likewise, for larger corporations that may want to take a risk-off approach, the entry level to having the resources, servers, data centers, et cetera, is really high if you don't already have those resources to dedicate to a new business. So what Junction opens up is the opportunity for larger companies, blue chip companies, to either directly or to create a subsidiary or have an already existing subsidiary, enter into Junction's ecosystem with a much lower level of entry. Utilize the GPU resources for whatever is needed. It doesn't have to be just for language learning models. It can be for rendering. Just think about anything you would use computation for, research analytics, creating models, or mining even for that sake. So there's lots of opportunity with a very low barrier of entry for companies to either start testing with. Maybe they're confident and they just want to add to their data centers and resource pools to train these LLMs faster, or whatever they're working on. So with Sonium, I definitely see possibilities down the road. I think that people really want to hear big names because in their minds, that means a huge price pump. That only happens when we are in a mega bull run. Just like with Meta, right? If you remember in late 2021, when Facebook changed their name to Meta, any and all projects that were associated with the metaverse had an explosion. Mana, for instance, was like a god candle out of nowhere the moment they said Meta, because obviously they were one of the big ones already at the time. But when you look at the announcement of Sonium and you go on to Astar's chart, and Astar is A-star. I don't really know how to say it, honestly. I've heard people say it different ways, even from Japan. But when you look at Astar's chart, net you're pulling up, actually, perfect. If you go, I think it was August 23rd was the announcement date. So find that candle. It should be the top, near the top of that one you're close to. Yeah. That's when it was announced. What happened? You know what I mean? So exactly. It was basically announced at almost at the top is the 23rd. So the second candle from the top green candle right there. Yes, is August 23rd, 24th. Yeah. So it was already running up anyway. Then Sonium was announced. Then it had a little blow off. It tried again, and then the price retraced 40%. So when people are hoping to hear big news, thinking that it's just going to give a price pump, that's all fine and dandy. And you can get random pumps like that. But the name brand of Sony, even Sony Network Communications that Astar is developing with to create the subsidiary that is developing Sonium, did not give it the staying power that it needed. And honestly, JASMY's biggest staying power is the Sony name brands, being that the executives are not only just former leaders of Sony, but the technology they brought you, we all use. They developed the entire, not the entire, but most of what we know about Web 2 and what we use every day in our lives was developed by that team in conjunction with Apple, General Magic that Sony was partnered with at the time, which Kunitake Ando was in charge of Sony Electronics, which all of those guys were going back and forth to Cupertino into the General Magic studios, while Sony itself was a subsidiary or a major shareholder of, along with Panasonic and Apple. And that's where the smartphone came out of. That's where the PDAs came out of. The Sony CLIE, all those devices came from that, as well as many other concepts. So, you know, that's what JASMY's riding on right now. And they've had really good staying power since we had our recent top compared to a lot of other tokens. You know, we really kind of held up nicely. But I don't think that's due to necessarily news. We just have a really good community that really believes in the project and believes that we can make really good capital gains off of a long-term investment. So just naming a partnership like Sony or Sonium, which I know everybody's always like, say the name, kind of like when Elon Musk would say Doge back in early 2021, and it would just be rocket ships. You know, that's the reason I actually I didn't have my Twitter active since 2011. I reactivated it in early 2021, only followed Elon Musk and put notifications on because it's the first time I ever tried actively trading. And I was like, once he says Doge, I'll invest, which is the dumbest thing because then I'm just chasing. But you didn't, you know, I was like, fail faster, right? But but that's the kind of hopium that people have when you get big name brand recognition like that, is that it's going to send the price to the sky. You can look on the chart right here. That's not the case. And I can show you a ton of other examples over the past couple of years since we had our late 2021 blow off top and entered the bear market. Now, of course, we're coming back up, but we're not in altcoin season yet. We just had a small rise up like we typically do going into the halving.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the big components to that is that, I mean, it's content creators, right? I mean, there's so many that don't give a crap what they're putting out. They just want clicks. So they do say that stuff. So say, oh my God, like, you know, this, they're going to say that, inject this name, and then, you know, trying to lure people in, because it's baiting new people into crypto to think that dropping a name of a company is just going to send the product to the moon, right?
Oh, 100%. And, you know, I have no problem with people wanting to trade any way they want to. If you want to invest in, if you want to go all in on 100x leverage on CumRocket, then go right ahead. Have fun with that badmouth meme coin name. I joke about that one all the time because there's a lot of people who had to explain why they lost their child's college fund to CumRocket to their CPA. But you know, but you know, that's totally fine. I don't like disingenuousness when it comes to some content creation. I think that some people are going to find that in more regulated countries, especially in the US, that that may come back to bite you in the butt when you're literally just pumping things or creating hopium to get things to pump through your audience. And honestly, you know, I'm not an expert on any of this. I try to do as much research as I possibly can and provide my perspective on things. But and just like, you know, you guys do as well, you know, none of us have any sort of degrees in development or algorithms or in PhDs in finance or economics. You know what I mean? I know some of the guys have college degrees in those aspects, even like Max and Dip and Jesse, et cetera. But when we're talking about top level and really having that type of insight, you know, we're all just here to provide our perspective. And my perspective is that throwing around a name when it is not altcoin season isn't going to get you that much. It would have to be something major like Apple saying that all transactions will be done in JASMY coin. That would be a different type of scenario. But just saying Sony's developing with so-and-so, that doesn't mean anything to a lot of people. That creates a little pump, and all that is liquidity for people to sell.
Yeah, it only really means something to us long-term investors, right? It helps us have a little bit more of a clearer picture of what direction the company's going in years down the road. But other than that, yeah, it's instant. But everyone wants instant gratification nowadays, right?
Oh, well, you know, I think if I remember correctly, you're a little bit older than me. I'm 1980. So we both have a perspective of witnessing the consumer age come to full fruition. And beyond that, you know, I remember when I was 3 or 4 and I came in from preschool. My dad was in the living room and my mom brought me home. And when I came in, I was talking with my dad for a second. No clue what I said. But I remember him saying, "Hey, watch this." And on the record player, he played back our conversation. My mind was shattered. I didn't even know. I was like, what? How am I in there? But nowadays, like, you see kids navigating websites who are not even 5 on a tablet, and you know, grandparents can't figure out how to do that. So it's the instant gratification and always getting what you need right then and there, and 24/7 markets, and just the whole gambling mentality. You know, that harnessed well can work out for some people, but most people are going to lose all of their money if they don't take a measured and long-term viewpoint. Yeah. If you want to learn how to trade, by all means, if you're the type of person, not you specifically, but if anyone listening, if you are the type of person who's betting everything on what people are saying or trading signals online, what you should be doing is betting a little bit and learning from a lot of different people and developing your own system. Because when it comes to trading long-term, short-term, swing trading, day trading, whatever it is, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to your emotions, what your needs are, what your risk tolerance is, and how much you need to make, what your goals are, and how much you're willing to lose. Nobody's going to have that exact formula for you. And that's something you're going to have to learn and develop yourself. I spent all of 2021 failing as much as I could so I could learn my emotions. I specifically invested a certain amount, said if I lose it, whatever, but I plan on learning from it. At the beginning of the year, I invested $3,000. At the end of the year, my trading volume on only Robinhood, I was on 5 exchanges, but only Robinhood was $350,000 of trading volume, and I ended the year with $1,500. So you could say I learned.
You're going to learn today.
You're going to learn today. That's right. So anyway, that's just those words of advice for anybody getting into this now. Don't try to bet big on something you really don't have a full grasp on. Just dabble here and there with your money. You're never going to learn if you're playing with paper money. But definitely do your best to learn about your emotions, your risk tolerance, and what time frames you're comfortable trading on. Some people love doing the 4-hour and under time frames. Me, I rarely look at the daily anymore. I typically look at weekly and monthly. If things are really hot, like it was earlier this year, I was on the 15-hour and 4-hour time frames, and I made some decent money that was actually helpful to us back then. But those are really the only times is when there's extreme volatility, because uncertainty you really got to know what you're doing. And some guys have great trading systems. I just know my emotions. Trading on those smaller time frames are going to get the best of me unless I can see the market has a clear direction.
Yeah, that's why it's like nails on a chalkboard whenever I see any content creators spending, 4 minutes of a 7-minute video shilling Margex or something like that. I'm just like,
exactly.
Stop.
But I guess I want to touch on one more thing before we wrap up here, which was let's see. So one other thing, Tycho, who runs the community JASMY Discord, JASMY International Discord, super nice guy. He's done several of our early AMAs, and he actually set up the first voice AMA ever with Hara that me and Jesse and Dip and Izzy and Tycoon, JASMY US and some other guys got to talk to him for the first time last year in May. But he asked about, what are you doing with Sony? So to clarify, we know that they, of course, are working with the Vio brand, which was created through Sony and then sold off minus a minor stake Sony still has in Vio to Japan Industrial not networks, partners, JIP, Japan Industrial Partners, back in 2014. They're currently working with Akashi, which is the time management system under Sony Business Networks, which is also a subsidiary of Sony Network Communications, which is what Astar is partnered with, and Sonet is what's developing Sonium. So, we're already working directly with one of the group companies of that division. And Akashi is also used by Toyota Finance, tons of other companies for the time management system through that. And that's all on JASMY's blockchain. We're also working, working towards the development with Xperia phones and Sony Bank as well. And they are also working and have some of their secure PCs in Sony's life insurance. So there's a lot of different avenues they're working with right now. But again, this is slow moving because until you really see blue chip adopting Web3 at scale anywhere, because it's not. Bitcoin ETF doesn't count as as adopting a utility at scale. Because even XRP, Ethereum, they're not being used when it comes to major B2B transactions or protocols or networks using Web3 technology or B2C. Like, there are no mass consumers who aren't aware of crypto using crypto at all. Almost everybody who's using crypto as a customer or endpoint is just betting on it. All of us are. So until we see that, it's that's when you'll see things starting to take off, which I'm hoping is going to really start next year as we get through this election cycle. And there's another several years of clarity ahead of us, regardless of the outcome. There will be clarity. And there will be data privacy laws that will start to be put into full force in the United States, which will then give clarity for businesses like JASMY's platform to come over. They can't operate here now because we don't have an omnibus data privacy law, which is what the ADPPI laws are being put forth right now. But we're at a standstill, honestly, until the election. So there's lots of things to look forward to, even with Sony partnerships. We're just going to it's just patience. It's still patience. Don't like waiting, and don't invest in a real project.
That's the transfer of wealth from the patient from the impatient to the patient, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention was, I did ask Hara a question about a company I found that he was the CFO for, Non-Entropy Japan.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, it was interesting because, I do searches in a lot of the different companies that they're associated with in Japanese text, as well as their names in kanji periodically, just to see what comes up. Because you won't find a lot of information if you're not searching in Japanese text. So I was searching for Tokyo token just to see what that because JASMY Labs is what Hara started after he left Tokyo Token, and Tokyo Token is the business that actually launched JASMY Coin. You can actually, if you go through the contract adjust and see where the actual transaction started, it came from Tokyo Token's address, which they've talked about since, but we found that before we ever knew, and I was like, what's going on? So anyway, I looked them up, and I saw that he was mentioned on a corporate profile in a PDF describing non-entropy. And I was like, well, that's definitely Hara. Sometimes the kanji will match up and it won't be the same person. But kanji it narrows it down a lot because the characters have a very specific meaning, but can, when you say it verbally, the words sound the same. But the fact that it was, showing that he was with Tokyo or ex-Tokyo Token with JASMY, etc., I was like, okay. And it turns out that this was a data center company, which specializes in digital twin technology, scanning the world, which they are one of the few companies that have a contract with Matterport to use their software development kit to kind of customize this. And they're creating metaverses. They created the metaverse for Discover Feed, which is scanning nightclubs and stuff like that to do virtual events with DJs, like DJ Afrojack did one with Discover Feed back last year when Hara was talking about it, but he didn't give any details. He was just like, yeah, I've decided to help support this. Well, you're the CFO of the company. So they helped develop the metaverse for this project. So, Hara, I should have mentioned it to him beforehand, because when you have to think on the spot in another language, it does throw you off. We usually try to give him our questions ahead of time so he can wrap his head around what he wants to say. And I know some people were like, oh, he wasn't expecting that you would find that. I'm like, his name was on a corporate profile. It was going to come up in someone's search. So I don't think and he knows the stuff I found that I haven't even shared. So it's like, he knows we found it, but he couldn't say much. He was basically just like, yeah, I'm assisting with auditing and advising. I'm like, well, that's called an auditor and advisor on the corporate profile, not chief financial officer. So I'm sure he is certainly helping out with auditing and advice for sure. So it's not that he was lying, he was withholding, in my personal opinion, because one of the other board members on there is former Transcosmos. Transcosmos has its own office space metaverse for meetings and stuff like that, which thinking back on it was probably developed through non-entropy. It also has their Grand Whale metaverse through All Nippon Airways co-development, which could also be through that. You have various other metaverses now that I'm starting to wonder, was this real world metaverse that JASMY announced or one of their partners announced developed through this company? And they do lots of other stuff as well, but they use everything and store all this information on the interplanetary file system, which is what JASMY uses. And of course, IPFS uses Filecoin to store this information. So Non-Entropy Japan is essentially a company that is digitizing the real world into the metaverse using Matterport scanners. And what's done with it after that is, it's basically just a scanned metaverse. So it's kind of the way I would look at it is a visual shell for whatever the developers want to do with afterwards, whatever kind of tokenomics or gameplay or interaction or meeting spaces or virtual world tours. One thing I like using the Oculus for that we have is to put it on and go to their maps, right? Because I can go to different places in the world and either go back places where we've been and look at it in 3D, or I can say, well, we're thinking about going here. Why don't we check it out and see if the pictures match what I would see from a 3D perspective? So I think there's tons of use cases, especially the digital twin aspect of being able to go into a metaverse and test things out using physics engines being run on decentralized physical infrastructure networks like Junction to be able to test out actual products like new engines or sorry, I'm getting quiet 1 sec while my wife is walking my sleeping son back to the bed, and he's good. Yes, that is a win. So anyway, there's a lot of different use cases. When you start to understand the projects as a whole, just like, all right, don't focus on what JASMY has currently done with their partnerships. Look at what those partnerships are, and then think forward. One of the things that I used to get stuck on early on is that, and you know, we even a lot of us older or veteran JASMY community members who've been here since 2021 would always complain about it. It's like, what's this partnership about? This is like a nothing company. Well, when you think of it from the perspective of what I talked about earlier, Blue Chip isn't going to go in and throw all their eggs in one basket with, you know, their shareholders, stakeholders breathing down their neck about, dude, you're worth a lot of money. Why don't you just have a spinoff or subsidiary test this out first, or a smaller company? They're doing their proof of concepts for a lot of these little things at a small scale to demonstrate the effectiveness of it, all the different data points you would need to make that decision as a major company to adopt a certain type of technology, whether it's a fan token for a sports team, whether it's using PDLs or time management systems on JASMY's blockchain or the carbon credit exchange, you know, just whatever it may be. The beautiful thing about JASMY is its platform's use case is not limited within the Web3 ecosystem on what it can be used for, because everything is generating data and almost everyone needs to protect consumer data in a decentralized manner, which is what the PDL does. So, you know, I think that just from that perspective, Junction has a lot of potential. And because Junction operates on a different type of platform as a GPU pool resource that's decentralized, which will eventually be on its layer one with various protocols and also using JASMY coin to pay for those resources, that can move extremely quickly because there's less hurdles to overcome from a regulatory standpoint, as opposed to a platform like JASMY's when you're talking about companies from the Web 2 era that are used to having big data, holding everybody's information under possibly just one encrypted key. Now you're talking about them trusting this company to give all of their customers PDLs with all different keys, so there's no single point of attack that can leak everyone's info. Maybe your grandma just gave her, you know, I don't know, gave her access to someone and they took all her money. I don't know, but you know, it's not that it's unhackable. It's that the entire ecosystem isn't hackable, and it's still new tech that's still being regulated. But Junction can move fast, and it gives JASMY a way to generate utility in the meantime. And you know, they're working on various other ways, but this is good that the main net will be online here in the next month. It's going into even before we get into what would traditionally be the major push into the bull run is the basically right after the U.S. president's elected, things typically blow off because there's some sort of certainty. I'm not saying I know what's going to happen. I'm just saying that's what has happened. But then again, crypto has only ever been in a period of quantitative easing. We never went through a QT cycle, and things couldn't be more ridiculous. So I'm not telling anyone to bet on what's going to happen because there's 1,000 different opinions. I know I have ones that I think sound great, but I'm not an expert to say that they are. But traditionally speaking, I think we're set up that if there is a really good push, Junction's mainnet launch here will give it a utility. That utility will also give Binance one of their main things that they were looking for to release JASMY out of the monitoring zone is a working product. So I think this kind of will also add to that while Panasonic is being developed. I don't really care about the Binance monitoring zone personally. I know a lot of people do, so that's why I'm bringing that up. For me, it's about the project, its development, and its utility coming over time through a longer term perspective, because I actually want this technology to work. Because I think, looking around right now, misinformation and who gets to determine what misinformation is about one of the hottest topics out there. And having it done through a consensus mechanism on blockchain through actual devices seems much more viable to me than just having one person say it's misinformation versus another. Whether you're in Canada or the US, I think we're all going through that whole headache of everyone arguing over misinformation, but it's misinformation on both sides. So whatever.
Speaking of misinformation, real quick, Donnie asks, will there be a migration? No, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, there is no V2 for JASMY coming out.
There's not.
That was a rumor made up by another content creator months ago.
You can move your JASMY over to the L2. Those details are still not fully available on exactly what it's going to look like. They may have discussed it in more depth in one of the articles. I would have to go back and search for it, but there's not a migration. We are not, JASMY coin will be operable eventually between the JASMY platform consortium layer 1 and Junction's layer 1. So, you can move it to Junctions. You can then stake it on Junction. You can use it for GPU resourcing pools. You can move it back over to JASMY's platform and use it for data trading marketplaces, and they may have easier ways to bridge those things in the future. But that it's not a migration.
Yeah, believe me, I put in a lot of work fighting that rumor when it came out. Holy smokes, man.
I put in a lot of work reading what a migration was when that rumor came out, because I kind of knew, but I was like, now I have to answer this. And I like to guess as little as possible when I'm trying to give a answer. So, or at least put out as many references as I can find.
Well, and that's the thing, is that, that matters, right? And a lot of people don't like, not to call him out. He probably doesn't watch my stuff anyway, but not I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, I saw that BitBoy was asked about JASMY in a live stream, and he laughed at the project like it was a joke. And then 2-3 days ago, he put it in his top 17 projects for best ROI going into 2025.
Yeah, it's there's a few influencers I could do without talking about JASMY, but you know what they say, any press is good press. So,
well, that's what I say. People ask me about it, and I say, look, is at the end of the day, if he's got 100, I think he's got like 130,000 subscribers. So I mean, hey, if it brings in more people that want to do their own research and hold the coin, awesome, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't picture myself sitting down and talking to him, though. Not that he would invite me on, obviously, but still, you know what I mean. But anyway, did you have any other questions or anything, man, before we wrap this up? I'm getting ready to start shutting the house down here on my end.
I'm hoping that I got other stuff I'd like to talk to you about, but another time, like, because we could be here for 12 hours talking.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, totally. This could be a marathon stream, and we wouldn't even get through everything on 72 hours.
I just wanted to say thanks once again, brother, for coming on. For me, for the community, it's always greatly appreciated, man. I hope to have you back again.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for everything you do. I mean, you're putting out a lot of content constantly about it and keeping the community update. I wish I had more time to be more active. Maybe someday, but I'm glad you guys are out there. It's always great seeing more and more people come into the space and understand the project and passionate about it. And can't wait to see where this all takes us in hopefully not too distant future.
All right, buddy. I'll send you a message soon. Hopefully we'll get you back on.
Hey, thanks a lot, brother. You have a good night.
You too, man. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.